The FBI is investigating them. Kash Patel roared, and the face-off studio exploded. Jasmine Crockett's eyes widened. Her hands clenched while AOC froze, her smile vanishing. The audience screamed. Cameras panned through blinding lights, capturing the drama that set social media ablaze. What's happening? This is the hottest political talk show where Crockett, the sharp Texas congresswoman, and AOC, New York's progressive star, face off against Patel, FBI director and Trump's loyal ally. Tensions have simmered for ages. Crockett once called Trump a waster over Doge, infuriating the White House. AOC struggled as Queen's leaders sent Patel letters accusing her of abandoning voters amid crime waves. Patel wielding FBI power once labeled Democrats an internal threat. Now they're face-to-face on live TV, and Patel just dropped a bombshell that stunned the nation. His statement, aimed squarely at Crockett and AOC's credibility, left both reeling. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The studio lights dimmed, narrowing into a warm glow around the central stage where the three main figures sat facing each other like chess pieces awaiting the first move. The air was still breathless. Then the familiar theme music blared, and from backstage, Vanessa Hart emerged, confident, eyes sharp, her voice resonating with every viewer. Welcome to Face Off, where uncompromising dialogues uncover what many try to ignore. The auditorium erupted in applause. Vanessa flashed a sharp smile, half courteous, half omen of the storm ahead. She turned to the three guests, introducing them with a tense formality. Joining us today are three figures shaping America's political landscape. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the unyielding voice from Texas. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, New York's progressive icon, and FBI Director Kash Patel, who holds more secrets than anyone in this room. A second round of applause, now cautious, as if the audience sensed the clash to come. Vanessa glanced at the three, her eyes like a blade skimming a chessboard. Then her tone shifted lower, firmer, like a gavel opening a trial. National security, a topic that never cools and is now boiling again. External threats are always concerning, but it's what furs within that keeps America awake at night. She pivoted, locking eyes with Kash Patel, her voice both inviting and challenging Mr. Patel as FBI director ahead of the agency safeguarding America from within. Can you share with the nation? How is the FBI tackling internal threats? And as are their specific concerns, perhaps even tied to those at this table? The studio air froze. All eyes turned to Patel, the man sitting still as stone, but his eyes under the lights glinted like a predator ready to strike. Kash Patel, calm but with eyes sharp as knives, adjusted his posture, commanding attention. "Thank you, Vanessa," he began, his voice low yet cutting like an arrow through the air. America faces dangers not just from outside, but from within, from those hiding behind progressive ideals to mass destructive intent. The FBI is closely monitoring certain individuals, including Congresswoman Crockett and Ocasio-Cortez, for their ties to extremist groups. Our files are clear, and we're actively investigating. Murmurs spread fast like fire on dry grass. Jasmine Crockett gripped her chair's armrests, her eyes blazing with fury. AOC beside her inhaled sharply, hands clasped tightly, masking a flicker of unease. The audience erupted, cheers mixing with boos. Vanessa Hart, ever professional, raised a hand for silence, her voice steady. "Thank you, Mr. Patel. That's a bold claim. Let's hear from the Congresswoman." Crockett shot up, her voice thundering, her Texas grit radiating unyielding strength. "Mr. Patel, you dare sling accusations without a shred of proof. I'm a Dallas daughter raised through struggle, fighting for my community. If you've got files, show them now or admit you're just Trump's tool, spreading lies to intimidate us." Her words cut like a blade, sharp but with a fleeting waver in her eyes as if fearing a secret exposed. Patel leaned back, his gaze icy, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Congresswoman Crockett, the FBI doesn't act without basis. We have data meetings, communications with groups calling for upheaval. Remember the Dallas rally where you shared a stage with activists demanding to dismantle the system or your support for defunding the police? That's not patriotism. It's a path to chaos." His words were a trap, vague but venomous enough to see out doubt. AOC stood, her voice calm but sharp as a thin blade. Mr. Patel, you're weaponizing the FBI for politics. This isn't about security. It's about silencing dissent. I've dedicated my career in New York to serving people, workers, families, not extremists, as you falsely claim. If you have data, make it public. Otherwise, this is just cheap slander. Her words, like an arrow, targeted Patel's credibility while stirring the progressive audience. Patel smiled, a smile like a sharp knife. The FBI doesn't disclose investigation details, but I can say we've recorded messages, calls, links to activists with near-violent ideologies. These congresswomen are no strangers to those groups. Our investigation is progressing, and when results are revealed, America will see who's who. He paused, then delivered the final blow. We're about to release findings that will shake the nation. Silence gripped the room for a second. Patel's words like a stone dropped into a still lake. Crockett clenched her jaw, hands tight, her anger masking growing unease. AOC glanced at her, eyes signaling calm, but unable to hide the tension. The accusation, vague but toxic, hung like a dark cloud, not easily dispelled. Crockett stepped forward, her voice now a blazing fire. You want to play dirty? I've spent my life building Dallas, education, jobs, justice. You dare call me an extremist? Look at Trump tearing the country apart for his own gain. Show your data, Patel, or shut up. Her words were fierce, but a slight tremor in her voice betrayed fear of attack. AOC, maintaining outward calm, took a sharper approach. This is classic authoritarian tactics, she said, her voice clear as a bell. Using power to smear women of color isn't new. My work in Congress is transparent. Bills, votes, town halls. If you have messages, show the nation. Otherwise, you're just covering for this administration's failures. Her words were strategic, but her clenched hands revealed the pressure. Vanessa Hart, with professionalism, kept steering. Congresswoman, Mr. Patel has made serious claims about FBI surveillance. How do you respond to these accusations? Crockett didn't hesitate. I'm not scared. I've faced it all. Poverty, prejudice, and still stand tall. Patel wants to intimidate me with lies. He's got the wrong woman. Her words were a vow, but her eyes flickered with doubt, as if fearing Patel held something. AOC nodded, her voice steadier. I focus on serving the people, not chasing conspiracies. Patel wants to scare us, but we represent the truth. Americans will see through this ploy. Patel sat still, his gaze cold like a strategist who'd landed a perfect strike. Crockett, still defiant, glanced at AOC, who returned a subtle nod. They were cornered, but not down. The extremist and FBI investigation charges were calculated blows meant to erode trust and dominate headlines. Yet, in their eyes burned resolve to fight, though Patel's words still weighed heavily. The studio buzzed after the debate storm. Applause, murmurs, tense glances, all awaiting the next wave. The stage lights softened, casting a pale gold over the three figures under the spotlight. Beautiful, but not enough to quell the smoldering fire between them. Vanessa Hart stepped forward, center stage, her stance firm like a referee in a war of words. Her voice rang out, confident, captivating, both professional and warm, as if soothing the audience before igniting the next spark. Thank you for joining us through this dramatic first half, she said, her eyes sweeping the studio. Today, national security isn't just about borders or Pentagon meetings. It starts on the streets we live on, the neighborhoods where our children grow. Vanessa turned, her gaze locking on Kash Patel, posing her question like a gentle but precise slash. Mr. Patel, as FBI director, how do you view the crime situation in places like Dallas and Queens areas sounding alarm bells? And how do you assess the roles of these congresswomen in addressing the security crises in their own districts? The room held its breath, cameras panned slowly to Patel. Kash Patel leaned slightly forward. His face lit up under the lights, his cold eyes measuring the distance before striking. A thin smile crossed his lips. Not a polite one, but the mark of a predator about to pounce. Thank you, Vanessa, he began, his voice smooth, light, but firm like a blade gliding through silk. Public safety in many cities is crumbling, and Dallas and Queens are no exceptions. In fact, they're prime examples of local governance failures. He paused for a beat. Every eye remained glued to him. Under Miss Crockett's representation, Dallas is sinking into a spiral of instability, economic, and street crime alike. In Queens, residents no longer turn to local government. They write to us to the FBI because they don't feel safe because they believe Miss Ocasio-Cortez can't or won't control the situation. Patel eased back in his chair, his gaze piercing the two women opposite. If a congresswoman can't protect her own neighborhood, what right does she have to speak on national security? His final words rang like a gavel in a courtroom. The audience froze. Crockett gripped her armrests. AOC shifted slightly, her face darkening. The crowd stirred, some nodding in agreement, others protesting loudly. Jasmine Crockett sat upright, her eyes blazing like embers, fingers tapping lightly on the table, ready to counter. AOC beside her maintained outward calm, but her clenched hands betrayed the pressure weighing on her. Vanessa Hart with professionalism raised a hand for silence. Thank you, Mr. Patel, Miss Crockett, Miss Ocasio-Cortez. Your responses, please. Crockett stood, her voice low and powerful, like a river surging. Mr. Patel, you talk about Dallas like you've walked its streets. I've brought millions in funding for schools, jobs, and safety. Crime. We face it daily. But you know who makes it harder? The Trump administration with policies like DOGE draining our resources. Want to criticize? Look in the mirror first. Her words were a fierce gust, carrying memories of late-night Dallas meetings, comforting fearful families. Patel smirked, his eyes flashing with smugness. Miss Crockett blaming Trump doesn't hide the truth. Dallas is drowning in violence. Reports show rising crime, businesses closing. You push police reform, but when people are scared, you dodge responsibility. That's leadership. He turned to AOC, his tone growing sharper. Miss Ocasio-Cortez, Queens is a mess. I have letters from residents begging the FBI to step in because you've done nothing. Your voters feel abandoned. They've told me directly. AOC rose, her eyes blazing, but her voice smooth as a stream hiding strength. Mr. Patel, you mentioned Queens, but haven't set foot there. I've worked tirelessly securing funds for youth programs, improving neighborhood safety, supporting families. Crime is complex, not one person's fault. But you know what makes it worse? Your administration slashing federal aid, pushing cities into crisis. Those letters. I've met every writer, and we're acting. You're just exploiting their pain to attack. Her words were sharp, woven with images of walking Queens' tough streets, facing harsh realities. Patel's eyes gleamed like a panther stalking prey. Very clear. The FBI has received countless complaints from both your voters. In Queens, people say they live in fear, and Miss Ocasio-Cortez is too busy with speeches to act. Dallas, crime's up, the economy stalled, and Miss Crockett clings to failed policies. If they can't keep their district safe, they don't deserve to represent America. His words were a dagger aimed at their pride. Crockett fired back, her voice now a wildfire, fierce, but controlled. You don't know Dallas, Patel. I've opened community centers, brought jobs to people. Crime. We're building better police forces, but you and Trump cut our funding, leaving us to fend for ourselves. Don't pretend to care when you just want to break us. Her words were a declaration of war, though her eyes still bore traces of the earlier extremist accusation. AOC followed, her voice like a steady river, powerful yet calm. Queens is my heart, and I fight for it daily. We've reduced crime in many areas, but it takes time and resources. Things your administration takes away. You mentioned letters. I've met every writer, and we're working on solutions. You don't care about Queens. You just want to use it to tear me down. The lighting and face-off now shifted to a soft blue, draping the three main figures in a velvet-like glow, yet doing nothing to cool the smoldering heat between them. The air remained taut as a bowing. From center stage, Vanessa Hart stepped forward, calm, her demeanor sharp like a seasoned analyst. Her voice rang out, not a beat wasted, each sentence measured to steer the show and navigate the tension. We've discussed security, a cornerstone of any democratic society. But in the modern era, safety isn't just shaped by laws or enforcement. It's also formed or fractured by how information is shared and received. She glided lightly to the left, facing the guests, her tone deepening into analysis. The media, once a bridge between people and reality, is no longer neutral. It can shape perceptions, amplify fear, or create instability. Yet, it can also spark dialogue, foster understanding, and restore public trust. She paused for a split second as if inviting the audience to reflect, then turned to face Kash Patel directly. Mr. Patel is FBI director leading an agency often under public scrutiny. How do you assess the media's true impact on public trust in institutions? And in that landscape, do the two Congresso women here, Miss Crockett and Miss Ocasio-Cortez, strengthen or fracture the bond between people and the truth in your view? Kash Patel's eyes gleamed like a hunter's, a subtle smile flickering. Thank you, Vanessa, he began. His voice smooth but sharp as a dagger. The media is a battlefield, and Miss Crockett and Miss Ocasio-Cortez are strategists. They use progressive outlets, CNN, MSNBC, to polish their image, covering up failures in Dallas and Queens. From speeches to exposts, they stir emotions, divide the nation, and erode trust in the FBI. I've seen Miss Crockett on The Late Show, turning politics into entertainment to distract the public. Crockett stood, eyes ablaze, her voice powerful as a surging sea. Mr. Patel, you dare talk about media manipulation. I went on The Late Show to tell Dallas's story. People struggling under Trump's failed policies. You and your administration use Fox News to smear us, spreading lies like that extremist accusation earlier. The media is how I speak truth to the people, not your game. Don't preach morality when you're the one stoking division. Her words were a whirlwind, carrying memories of interviews where she fought to defend her reputation. Patel smirked, his eyes flashing smugness. M. Crockett, you call it truth, but the public sees through it. You use media to hide failures. Your posts calling for justice only incite crowds. He turned to AOC, his tone growing mocking. Miss Ocasio-Cortez, you turn everything into a social media drama. Live streams, X posts with millions of views, but they don't fix Queen's problems. Is that media or distraction? AOC rose, eyes blazing, her voice soft as a breeze, but brimming with strength. Mr. Patel, you talk about media like you don't play the same game. I use social media to speak directly to people about policy. Queens their needs. But you and Trump, Fox News spreads lies from extremist accusations to smearing our records. The media should be a bridge, not a weapon. You want to talk division? Look at how your administration manipulates public opinion to cling to power. Her words were sharp, woven with images of late-night Queens live streams engaging voters. Patel tilted his head. Miss Crockett and Miss Ocasio-Cortez know how to make the media their stage. They use it to polish their image, hiding failures in Dallas and Queens. But the public isn't naive. They see through the facade. The FBI must operate in a media landscape distorted by them. And that's why we have to speak the truth. His words were an arrow aimed at the audience's trust. Crockett's eyes flared, her voice now a flickering flame, fierce but controlled. You talk about truth. You and Trump use Fox News to divide people, spreading lies to tear us down. I go on TV to talk about Dallas, about mothers, kids who need us. That's not manipulation. It's responsibility. You want to talk facade? Look at your administration, Patel. Her words were a declaration of war, though her eyes still carried traces of earlier accusations. AOC followed, her eyes alight, her voice like shimmering water, powerful yet calm. The media is how I connect with Queens, explaining policy, building trust. But you and Fox News use it to smear, to intimidate. If you want truth, stop playing dirty and face your administration's failures. Her words were memories of posts where she engaged directly with voters. The stage lighting shifted to a warm orange, spreading an atmosphere that seemed to soften but couldn't dispel the simmering tension among the three central figures. In that glow, Vanessa Hart stepped forward, her voice steady and captivating as always, maintaining her role as the mediator amid clashing viewpoints. Ladies and gentlemen, in the modern world, the media is no longer just a mirror reflecting society. It's become a lens shaping how we perceive policies, leaders, and the nation's future. She paused for a beat, her gaze sweeping the auditorium, then settling on the three guests. We've heard perspectives on security, the foundation of stability. But what happens after stability is established? Reform policies are the answer, where systemic decisions directly impact the health, justice, and opportunities of every citizen. Her voice sharpened, cutting to the core. Mr. Patel, as FBI director, observing societal impacts at the federal level, how do you assess the influence of current reform policies, particularly healthcare and justice? And how do you view the roles of the two Congresswomen here, Congresswoman Crockett and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, in advancing or shaping these policies? Kash Patel's voice was smooth but sharp as a razor. The progressive policies of Ms. Crockett and M. Ocasio-Cortez, justice reform, universal health care, are socialism in disguise. They weaken the economy, threaten security, and push America into chaos. Ms. Crockett calls for defunding